Hello, all. Welcome to Zimbabwe University Colloquium. Today we have with us Usha Rajagopalan. Usha Rajagopalan is a writer, translator, and lake conservationist. Her books include two volumes of translations, selected poems of Subramania Bharati, and she's going to talk to us about the poet, the bard of our time. And the other volume on translations is called Panchali's Pledge, both published by Hachette India. Her latest book is The Zoo in My Backyard, a joyful memoir of her childhood with a variety of pets. She led a campaign to save Puttenahalli Lake in Bengaluru, in South Bengaluru in 2008, and co-founded the Puttenahalli Neighbourhood Lake Improvement Trust, through which she nurtures the lake. So, a very warm welcome to you, Usha ji, and
Thank you.
we are eager to listen to you talking to us about the poet.
Thank you so much, Dr. Himanshu. And uh, this is a great opportunity. The third time, I think I have been doing a program with APU, and one was on Subramania Bharati. It was a fusion presentation where uh, one of my friends, she sang the Carnatic and another friend did the Bharatanatyam. So today, well, don't expect me to sing or dance. I can't do either, but I can certainly hope to bring to you and the listeners today a little glimpse in the greatness of this Mahakavi Subramania Bharati. He was a child prodigy. He lost his mother at a very young age, and he was brought up by his father and by his grandfather, who introduced to him the Tamil literature. The grandfather introduced him to Tamil literature. And the boy, Subbayya, he was born in a very small place called Ettayapuram in Tamil Nadu. And he, even as a child, he heard, he felt, he saw music all around him. The father not was keen on the boy studying in the English medium school and doing very well in arithmetic and becoming an engineer and having a good job, earning lots of money. But the boy, Subbaya, was given to looking out of the classroom, seeing the leaves rustle, listening to the birds chirping or going out, watching the water, rippling, falling over the stones, and generally he lived in another world altogether. Another thing that he was used to doing was to go to the palace of the Maharaja of Attayapuram, and in the assembly of scholars and academics and poets, this little boy would stand up and recite his own poems, all impromptu. Just look at the greatness and audacity, perhaps, of this little boy who had the gumption to stand up for in front of all these Mahan people and then recite his own poems. And it was on one such occasion that the Maharaja of Attayapuram conferred the title of Bharati, one blessed by Goddess Saraswati, on Subaya. He was at that time about 11 years old. From that day on, Subbaya came to be known as Subramania Bharati. The father was not happy about it. He was, of course, proud that his son was recognized and hailed as a poet, but he knew very well that there can be no money in poetry. He was right, of course. Even then and even today, there is no money in poetry. Forget about poetry in creative writing. But the boy just couldn't help it. He was in this magical world in which he was bursting with poems, with the most beautiful uh, words and verses that enthralled everybody around him except the father. So, in an attempt to To instill some sense of responsibility in the boy, Chinnaswamy Iyer, his father, got the boy married. And he was about 14, 15 at the time. And Chellama, his wife, was a little girl, about 7. And those wedding those days were very elaborate affairs. They went on for 5, 6 days. And the bridegroom rather, the bridegroom had the audacity to sing love songs to his little bride, who squirmed and wished that her husband would be like everyone else. She was, of course, later to admire the poet in him, to admire the genius of a husband that she's got. But poetry is when our reaction to everything, our reaction, our response to everything is so very subjective. We come to everything with our own baggage of experiences, of expectations. And it is even more so when it comes to poetry. So today, what I'm going to do is to tell you why I believe that Subramania Bharati's poetry is so relevant, so valid for these times. Uh, as I said, he began by as a child, and he went on to keep writing poetry, and he got married. He didn't change his ways, he kept writing. One thing changed his life forever, I think. It was not just the marriage. Within a year after he got married, Bharti's father passed away. Chinnaswamy Iyer passed away. And the boy, Bharti, had to grow up. He had to take up responsibility for the household. And he went to Banaras to stay with his aunt. And it was it was a cultural awakening for him, not just cultural, it was a literary, religious, political. Banaras was as far removed distance wise and in all other aspects from what Bharati was used to. He was very well read in Tamil literature, but coming to Banaras, he learned English. As much as he had hated learning in an English school, he discovered uh, the poetry of English poetry, and especially the lyrics of Keats and Shelley, to the extent that he called himself Shelley Dasan and adopted that simple lines as lyricism of the English poets. So that was one influence. The second influence was that he got to meet people from different parts of the country. One section, especially, who really impressed him was that of the Sikhs. They are very tall, very well built, and they have this turban. They have a straight walk. So Bharti was enamored by this, and he started sporting a turban, and he grew a big mustache. All that which was so contradictory to the typical Tamil Brahmin ways of his times. So he started walking straight. He was a figure to be reckoned with. You cannot pass over him. And when he came back after his studies, he had his young wife to look after. He had a family to look after. What does anybody actually want when you are starting off on your new life? You want happiness, you want for your family, you want peace, you want what the best that life can offer. The best, according to Bharti at the time, a newly married with a young wife, he wanted a patch of land. Kani Nilamendum. A patch of land I want, Parashakti. Give me a patch of land. On that patch of land, Parashakti, I want a house built for me, its pillars decorated, Parashakti, and balconies painted white, palm trees beside the well, Parashakti, with long fronds and tender nuts, 10 or 12. Those palms, Parashakti, the coconut trees I want nearby. Moonlight should descend gently, Parashakti, casting a gleaming veil of white. As a soft cooing of the cuckoo, Parashakti, should fall lightly on my ears. A gentle breeze should blow, Parashakti, and give pleasures to my soul. A young wife I want, Parashakti, to share all these with me. He did have the young wife. Our joyful togetherness, Parashakti, blessed with poetry. Living in that open land, Parashakti, be there to guard us. With the power of my poems, Parashakti, enable me to defend the earth. How much has his poetry been able to defend the earth at his time or today is the question that I would like to explore in this session. Returning from from Benares, he worked very briefly in the with the court of the Maharaja of Attayapuram, where he had actually had to read out to the Maharaja and write poems eulogizing the king. And Bharti did not want to do that, so he left and he took up a part-time job as a teacher. And then in 1904, he joined Swadesa Mitran as a sub-editor. One of his jobs was to translate the speeches made by the political figures at the time, Gandhiji, Tilak, all those people into very simple language, into a Tamil, which people on this road can understand. That helped Bharti to, if the lyricism of Shelley he adopted into his poetry, the translating the words of political speeches into a simple language brought about simplicity and clarity, directness into his writing. It was very different from the typical Tamil writing at that time. Bharti was not the first person to write like this, though there were many others. But nevertheless, 20th century Tamil literature came to be called the age of Bharti because of the simplicity, the topics or the themes on which he wrote. For instance, this Kani Nilamendum, the patch of land, it could very well be me or you talking, expressing our wishes right now. It is going to be the wish of somebody 10 years, 20 years down the line because these wishes remain very, very common. They are universal to everybody. So, this clarity that he had in his writing, the lyricism that he adopted, he found the Swadesa Mitran was not very keen on publishing all his very virulent poems because he also got to know from while translating the speeches exactly the kind of position that Bharat was in as under the rule of the British. And he chafed, he wanted to drive the British away. His love for the country was absolutely so deep, he cannot even think of a country like his motherland being under a foreigner's rule, under an alien rule. And why not? Especially when he has read so much of Tamil literature, uh, he's a man of the ground for the people, and his motherland was everything to him. In this poem called Nattu Vanakam, he says, "This is the blessed land where our parents lived and loved and led a blissful life. This is the holy land where their fathers were born and died over 1,000 years. This is a fertile land where their countless thoughts did spring and grow and flourish. When I think of this, my heart thrills, and heartfelt tribute pours from my lips. Will I not salute her then, my beloved land? Vande Mataram, long live our dear motherland. This is the bounteous land of our birth that fed us and enlightened our minds. This is the land where our mothers were born. They prattled as infants, grew wiser. This is the land where in their maiden days they played and frolicked in the white moonlight, splashed and swam in the rippling stream. This is the land of their married lives. Will I not salute her then, my beloved land? Long live, my dear motherland. This is the land where our mothers added to the renown of their husband's home. This is the caring land where they gave birth to the children, nursed and loved them. This is the land where myriad temples stand to give us hope and help us lead a better life. This is the land where our loved ones left us and their ashes merged with the earth. Will I not salute her then, my beloved land? Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, என்று வணங்கேனோ. So for someone like Bharati, to whom India, his motherland, was everything, he simply could not bear the thought of the British ruling over the country. He, through his virulent writing, through his powerful writing, he poured scorn on the British. He incited the fellow countrymen to rise up and revolt against the British. All this, of course, brought him under the radar of the British, who was keeping a very keen eye on him. One of the poems, particularly, which I find honestly really, really powerful, is this. He felt that that his fellow Indians, were being very timid, very scared of the white skin, very diffident about speaking up for themselves, or freeing the country from the shackles of the British. He says, நெஞ்சு பொறுக்கதில்லையே இந்த நிலைகட்ட மனிதரை நினைத்து விட்டால் அஞ்சி அஞ்சி சாவார் இவர் அஞ்சாத பொருளிலை அவனியிலே. The plight of present day Indians, perhaps even with the title, you can think of how it relates to the present day Indians of today. How my heart aches when I think of these spineless, irresolute people. They will fear this, they will fear that. There is nothing in the world they do not fear. Look, ghosts of frauds, they will say. There on that tree. No, 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 in that pond. Hanging up there, they will declare, shivering at the thought, full of scare. Sorcerer, they will say, and convulse in horror. Spells, chants, and witchcraft. Several thousands are their fears. They quake at the sovereign's rule as if he's a monster dreadful, not realizing that with their bounty, the anointed king protects the country. Blind to the scriptures, they will believe and act on the words of the pseudo-seers. One from their own clan they will outcast because his thoughts differ from theirs. Singing paeans, they will hasten to obey the traitors plotting their very ruin. Angrily, they will call one a Shiva devotee, another a Vishnu votary, and quarrel bitterly. My heart breaks, and yet, endlessly though I think of them, I cannot hate them. Not a grain they have to eat, and not a clue to why they starve. Famine, grinding poverty daily drains their lifeblood away. Pitiful is their plight, but then there is nothing one can do for them. Ailments afflict them by the score, leaving them too weak to get up and walk. Like sightless children, they let others lead them into trouble and misery. Born in a sacred land like ours, home to us myriad fine arts, like churlish animals, they reside, devoid of all senses refined. நெஞ்சு பொறுக்குதில்லையே இந்த நிலைகட்ட மனிதரை நினைத்து விட்டால் அஞ்சி அஞ்சி சாவார் இவர் அஞ்சாத பொருளில்லை அவனியிலே. When he wrote such poems like this, such incendiary words like this, obviously it's going to make people terribly unhappy. By people, I mean, of course, those in power. And the British issued an arrest warrant on Bharati. VOC was already was in prison, and Bharti's friends, uh, they wanted to protect him, and they sent him. They told him to escape to the French-ruled Pondicherry, so that he could be safe there as a political fugitive. He chafed there, but it was simply not possible for him to do anything about it. He was there from 1908 to 1918, and those 10 years of his life, as a literary figure, he was absolutely at his best. He wrote some of his most important works in that time, right from Panchali Shabadam to Kuyil Pattu, to Kannan Pattu, to so many poems which have absolutely stood the test of time. But his heart was always in his motherland, and he was not given as much to despair as to anger that he is not there to get India, to drive the British away and get India her independence. Financially, he was also in a very, very bad spot because, as the assistant editor of Swadhyay Mithran, his earnings were little, but coming to Pondicherry, he lost even that. And yet, he always retained hope. He imagined a time when the country would become free, and how will the new country be? This is a poem which I'll read now to you. It's called Aaduvome Pallu Paaduvome. Let's dance, let us sing. Now, what or how should the new Bharat be? Some of the things, yes, some of the wishes that Bharati had for a free country are given in this poem. Let us dance, let us sing with wild, wild exuberance. Let us cheer getting our country's independence. Everyone is talking of our blessed liberty. From now on, we are equals, is a certainty. Blow the conch and proclaim our victory. Tell the whole world our achievement story. The time has come when we are reckoned as one. The time has come to get rid of lies and deception. Let us exalt all good people and honor them. Let us together destroy cunning con men. We'll worship the diligent worker and those who work in agriculture. I'm sorry, I read the line wrong. We'll worship diligent work and agriculture and condemn the eating and loafing waster. We'll not strain ourselves by watering the weed, nor by serving the unreliable in word or deed. This land we live in is ours, we realize. It belongs solely to us, we recognize. To no one on this earth will we be subservient, but lead our lives serving only the omniscient. It's fine to have ideas like this, but he was also very conscious of the fact that such wishes are not actually going to help. And he executed many of his dreams for a free country in his own actions. He had the opportunity to meet Sister Nivedita, who asked him, who actually instilled three things in him. One was the importance of independence for the country, education, and equality of people. Now, equality of people can actually come about only when we do not have these man made divides among us. He saw caste as one big stumbling block towards achieving the standard of a new country which he aspired to. He saw all people as one. He was in the habit of inviting everybody home, much to the horror of his clan in his agraharam, in his very traditional orthodox street. Everybody was welcome home. His wife was horrified because quite often he would invite them to have a meal in the house when there was nothing to eat even for the family. So once to send out a message that there is no division between him as a Tamil Brahmin and the untouchable, he once did conducted the Upanayanam of a Dalit boy. I wonder how many people would have attended it, but it definitely shocked the community no end. In another poem, he has talked about how the caste division is something which has to be completely uprooted from forever. And this was one way of him showing that it can be done. If he, a Tamil Brahmin, can initiate a Dalit boy into Brahmanhood, then that actually shows that all people are one. So here, this is again, in a sense, a continuation of what the free India is going to be. This is a very well-known poem called Vetri Itte Dikkum Itta. Many of Bharati's poems are quite long and they are also sung in concerts and films. Typically, they will take only a few stanzas because it's not possible to sing the whole thing. So, some of you who may have heard this poem, you may wonder how come I am reading a few more than what you've heard. It's much shorter than the original. Let the eight corners of earth boom with our victory. I'll speak of what's best for a nation. I will speak the truth, as I do know. There are people who talk of sects in caste, of the lofty and the lowly. They will usher partisan rules and stoke constant quarrels. Let us get rid of all caste biases. Love will knit the world together. Let us live supporting one another and do 1,000 jobs very well. The dim witted talk of diverse gods and add fuel to the fire of hatred. God is a single supreme. He lives in every little thing. The Brahmin worships fire, the Muslim turns to Mecca, the Christian offers prayers before the cross in a church. The God that they all worship, the God that exists in everything, the God in the world is one. There is no need to quarrel about this. Beat the drum, proclaim that all men are equal. Beat the drum, condemn all caste divides. Beat the drum that in love there is gain. Beat the drum, if wily false divisions vanish. all troubles will come to an end. Beat, beat the drum and love. The whole of mankind is one. If we treat everyone equally, all happiness will increase. Isn't that true even today? Uh, we may not be observing small divisions between ourselves, but aren't there among us so many who keep these imaginary boundaries around themselves or confine others into separate sections? This is why I believe that Bharati, this is one more reason why I believe that Bharati is a poet of our time. I told you that he had met Sister Nivedita, and Sister Nivedita told him about the three things which are very important. Uh, One of the questions she asked him is, how come you've come alone? You're married. Where's your wife? So Bharti said, my wife is home. She will not come for all these things. So Nivedita asked him, why? Doesn't she have a right? Isn't she your equal in society? And that lit up, opened his eyes. He realized that when he is talking about all people being the same, then there clearly shouldn't be any gender divide as well. What is it that makes him a better person than his wife? Nothing at all. So he adopted his ideas of putting women on par in his own family. When he went out in that tradition bound agraharam, he insisted that his wife wore the typical 9 yard sari. Imagine, she was quite young. She wore the typical 9 yard sari. And the custom was that the wife will cover her shoulder and walk a few feet beside the husband and not dare lift the head up. What did Bharti do? He insisted that she walk by his side. He sometimes put his arm around her shoulder, and he looked left and right to all those who were watching, saying, hey, see what I'm doing. Let me see what you can do. Whether you can do that with your wife. That is giving equality to the woman. He had two daughters, and when a guest comes home, uh, he insisted that his daughters open the door for the guest, and they would pour water for the guest to wash his feet. This was completely shocking to the others, perhaps even to the guests who must have got used to it. And the girls also got used to it. So they were brought up in this family where there is no divide between man and woman. He brought out a magazine. It's not enough that he just confines his theme of women's liberation among his family of wife and two daughters, but he brought out a magazine called Chakravartini. He hated the British, but he was a great admirer of Queen Victoria, and he named the journal after her as Chakravartini. It was perhaps the first of its kind in Tamil, which was exclusively for women. And he named it Chakravartini because he admired Queen Victoria's wisdom, the learning, the power that she had. He opposed her reign over his country, but he did not allow all these to cloud his admiration for her as a person. So, in every issue of Chakravartini, a two-liner came just below the name. A rough translation is like this: women, when learned, become exalted. Women, when united, exalt the world. In the free country, the woman will also be the new woman. Not to say so much in her appearance. He was not bothered about how she clothed or walked, how she behaved, how she stood up to people. He wanted her to walk like him with a brave, straight back and eyes looking into the eye of the person. So, this is a poem in which he hails the new woman in the new India. Potri, potri, oh, Rairam potri. Many thousand salutes to your golden feet, like a lotus rising from the murky slush, blooming bright and fresh. You appear in the Bharat nation, maiden queen, beating the freedom drum that removes distress. We welcome you. Equating men and women will sharpen the mind and a world will prosper, she says, the new woman. Garbed in virtue, appearing in a female form, is none other, she says, than Ma Shivashakti. Shame and fear are traits that belong to dogs. Wisdom, goodness, courage, and freedom are qualities that adorn girls well bred. Did you hear these words of this godly girl? The crop is only as good as the soil. For a slaving, unlettered woman on earth to give birth to fine and upright citizens is something that is never heard of, she says, the new woman. By nature, gentle women are chaste. Using force or keeping them ignorant to guard their virtue is sheer cruelty. All that she does and says, this new woman may seem new and strange in our present age, but in the Vedic days of yore, they were just common practice, she says. These honeyed remarks of the maiden were sadly twisted when times changed. An erect stride, frank and direct look, conduct that fears no one on the earth, pride in one's growing knowledge, it seems, will keep the greatness of women steady. It is the woman's duty, she says, to spit on the blackness of ignorance, to ensure we don't sink into a life that is crass. Did you hear this from the modern day lass? To elevate our country and make Bharat great, by the sweat of our brow we must strive. Withdrawing and living in a hole indoors is something brave girls will soon destroy. Raise to the ground falsehoods of the past, split and scatter senseless constraints, offer as oblation to Agni the fire god each little hollow act of man. Hail, hail, may you live long, the glory of the new woman forever shine. Potri, potri, oh Rairam potri. In another poem, incidentally, that Beat the Drum poem, I told it's a very long one. In two or three stanzas from that poem, again give this idea. The God who creates and sustains gave perception to women. Some blighted fools on earth spoilt and skewed their wisdom. Will anyone pierce one eye and lose their power of sight? Foster women's wisdom and see the world shed its ignorance. Now, why is it that even today women have really definitely reached phenomenal heights, but we hear of so many incidents where women bear the brunt of male cruelty or male chauvinism, of dowry debts and whatnot. I think largely it's not just about the inequality of women or the caste divides or any evil that is happening in society right now. I think it is because of uh, our ego as individuals, the sense of superiority that we have, that it's also ignorance, that I try to hide my ignorance by seeing myself as projecting myself as better than the others, by putting others down just to show your superiority. uh, I think we are losing out on so many good qualities that should actually be nursed and brought to the fore. One of them is the quality of forgiveness, the quality of accepting the other person for what he or she is without trying to impose our will on that person. In this, I would like to, I'm reminded of another beautiful poem. When Bharti was in Pondicherry, the British tried very hard to bring to get Bharti back to Bharat so that they can arrest him. So one of the ways they did was to, he was staying in a rented house, and one of the ways they did was to get the landlord to drive uh, the poet away. So the landlord came and told him, I'm evicting you. Did not give any reason, nothing. I'm evicting you. So Bharti was shocked. He had no money and he had nowhere to go. So he was sitting on the veranda and wondering what to do. Where do I go next? And he was fortunate to have very many good friends. And one of his friends, he came around and said, what happened to you? So he said, this is what my landlord has said. I've been evicted. So the man said, why are you worried? You come, I'll give you a house. And one line occurred to him, to Bharti, Engirdo vandan idai jadi naan என்றான். Yeah, and this is a very, very beautiful poem where he visualizes Krishna as a servant. I'm not going to recite this poem, but those of you who have heard this, you will remember it's sung in film song as well. I don't remember the name of the movie, but it's a beautiful song, and do listen to it. எங்கிருந்தோ வந்தான் இடைஜாதி நான் என்ற. It goes that way. But when the British failed to get Bharti back, they tried another trick. They sent somebody. One of their informers to Bharti's house. So this man came home, a total stranger, and Bharti took him upstairs. Chellama was watching, his wife was watching. She didn't know what they were talking about, see such secret, and both of them left the house. Chellama was scared of asking her husband, where are you going? When will you be back? She just watched them leave. And 2 days later, another friend of theirs brought Bharti back, and the friend told Chellama that the man who had come was actually a British informer. He had told Bharti that the arrest warrant on him had been lifted, and it was now safe for Bharti to go back. So Bharti, the trusting soul, so keen on returning to his motherland, he very willingly believed the traitor and he went with him. Fortunately for him, the friend happened to be coming from the opposite direction and he saw Bharti. He recognized the man with him as a stooge of the British. He stopped the vehicle, he got Bharti down, and he brought him back. A few days later, this informer, he had the audacity to come home. And Chellama was a much lesser mortal than Bharti, and she was not going to forgive this man in a hurry. He imperiled, he jeopardized Bharti's life itself. So the moment this fellow entered, and her face became red with anger, her eyes were bloodshot, and seeing her like this, Bharti sang a poem to her. Pagaivanukku arulvai nannanje, pagaivanukku arulvai. Show mercy to the enemy, kindly heart. Show mercy to the enemy. In the thick of smoke, there is fire. We have seen this on earth, kindly heart. We have seen this on earth. In the midst of enmity, God dwells as love. God dwells as love, kindly heart. God dwells as love. A loosened pearl can be found nestled within an oyster shell. Don't you know this, kindly heart? Growing in the midst of refuse, can't the Madhavi creeper bloom in profusion, kindly heart? When falsehood creeps into the mind, can the mind be at peace, kindly heart? If a little poison is added to pure honey, can it still be called honey, kindly heart? To subdue another is to take one's life. Haven't you heard this, kindly heart? Even the tiger that threatens to devour us, you can win over with love, kindly heart. When Ma Parashakti appears as a tiger, bow to her, kindly heart, bow to her. I don't know how much of an impact this poem would have had on Challama, whether she developed that kind of forgiveness and of universal brotherhood. But Bharti constantly tried to improve himself. He was very conscious about his own shortcomings. And he kept trying to make himself a better person. And this poem that I chanced to come across, I really found it so powerful. I hope you will get a glimpse of Bharti's greatness just in this poem. Just one second. Yeah. மோகத்தை கொன்றுவிடு அல்லால் என்ற மூச்சை நிறுத்திவிடு தேகத்தை சாய்த்துவிடு அல்லாத சிந்தனை மாய்த்துவிடு kill my desires each one of them or stop my breath for all time to come chop down this body of mine or else erase every worry that torments. Let me remain in a yogic trance. If not, cut me to pieces and scatter the lot. You are the one, the absolute being, creator of everything in the universe. Loosen my bonds with all kith and kin, or take this life from me. It's a burden. Give me clarity in my thoughts, or make this body of mine a corpse. Will I spend my whole life in vain, mistaking the chaff for grain? Tell me, you who are in everything, you who make all move from within. Will my heart become still? Tell me. Will my ego and lies fade completely? Will falsehood thaw and cease, Mother? Will my pious tears flow forever in the flood of your benevolent riches? Can't this dog be granted petty wishes? Tell me, you, the inexplicable, the all present, the all powerful. Bharti died at a very young age. He died when he was 39 years old. This year is the death centenary of Subramania Bharati. On 11th September, late night, early hours of 12th, in fact, he died with many of his wishes unfulfilled. One was, of course, he did not see India become independent. He did not see education. He had said that in every nook and corner there should be a school. If men want to show their use their riches to put them to good use, let them start schools for children. He wanted all people to be one. He wasn't able to do all these things. But one thing he couldn't do was to stay on in Pondicherry. In 1918, fed up of being a political fugitive, he came back. When he crossed the border at Kadalur, the British immediately arrested him and put him in jail. He was there for about a month or so. And his friends, they bailed him. They took him out on bail, and he lost absolutely no means of livelihood. He went and lived in his wife's with his wife's family in Attayapuram. But he tried to earn through his writing. He tried to publish his works. He wrote not just poetry, he wrote in different genres as well. But his friends this time were not so cooperative. They were scared of publishing his works, so that they, in the fear that they will also be get branded as traitors and put in jail. So Bharti wanted his works to be as freely available to everybody like a matchbox. He died without this wish being fulfilled either. He wrote postcards to his friends, to everybody, trying to raise money to publish his works, and he failed. He did not live to see the country become independent. So many of his wishes were unfulfilled. But his poems are so powerful that they are so relevant today that even if not in the now or in the next few years, each of us were to learn just a little bit and learn to improve ourselves, I think it will be a better world for all of us. But one thing that he wished for, not just the world, but not just for himself, for the country, but for the entire universe, was a poem called Vendidal. Vendidal is actually could be translated as a prayer or aspirations. I have written it as aspirations. May our minds be firm, speech pleasant, and thoughts pure. May we grasp the attainable. May our dreams come true. May we reap quickly the fruits of our effort. May we earn wealth and joy, fame on earth. May our eyes open, steady be our labor. May our women be unfettered, our fertile land, a heaven on earth. May truth prevail. May the Almighty guard us all. Om, Om, Om. This poem, in fact, captures the entire essence of all that Bharati, the Mahakavi Bharati, wanted for himself, for his country, for the world. So, on that note, I shall end this talk. So, thank you very much.
Bring that text if you have any questions that you can. Total 99 full total ಇದೆ.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for giving such a wonderful speech and also for accepting our invitation. Uh, as of now, we don't have any questions, and I think we will end up our session.
Thank you very much.